Yeah. Okay, so I'll introduce you. Welcome, everyone, to our 129th Wedding Online Sports Economics Seminar. As you may be able to, my screen's very tiny now, but I'm on location in Oldham Athletic today rather than in Reading. The series is nonetheless hosted by the University of Reading, sponsored by Sports Economics Review. It's a great pleasure to have Jing Guan presenting, Playing for Admission, the Health Effects of Incentivized Sport Performance. She has an hour in which to present, and she's happy to take questions as she goes along. So without any further delay, Jing, please do take away your talk.
All right. Thanks, Jim, for the invitation, and very glad to be here. Thank you, everyone. And my name is Jing Guan, and you can call me Jing. And today is a presentation of an ongoing research that I'm currently working on entitled Playing for Admission, the Health Effects of Incentivized Sports Performance. So this work is a collaborative work from my colleagues and students from both in the UK and China. So we have co-authored Yu Ke and Zhen. They were my students, and Yu Fei is a professor working in the Beijing Sport University, and Paul Downward is currently my colleague at School of Sport, Exercise and Health Sciences at Loughborough University. And before the talk, I'd like to give a short introduction about myself, and here is the content, something about me, and then come to the paper itself, structured as motivation, literature, background, a theoretical framework, data variable, methodology and results, and some extended analysis, discussion, conclusion, and limitation and future work. In terms of structure, this is a relatively complete work, but there are some extensions and future works that we could work on to make the story more comprehensive. About me, so I'm a lecturer in sport management at Loughborough University. I've joined the UK quite recently, which is July last year. And before that, I was working as a lecturer, senior lecturer in a university in Beijing. And I did my PhD in economics in Beijing, and also a joint PhD, which I spent 1 year at University of Liverpool in the third year of my PhD. So me myself is a health economist and a data analyst. So I looked into how health or sports policy, evaluate those policies, how it impact individual outcomes, especially health outcomes, and physical activities participations. I'm also interested in sports risk management, especially in the field of health insurance. And I've also joined a couple of UK and China policy evaluation groups joining as steering group, and work with them to evaluate the sports related and health related policies, and also gain experience working with policymakers and insurance companies. And that's the brief introduction about myself, and talking about the motivation of this research, because I'm always interested in the determinants of health or individual outcomes. And we all know that there is a sports participation can significantly improve health outcomes or potential broader individual outcomes like employment or well-being, or like long-term, like individual development. And there are a lot of interventions, but for teenager or young people, there is a common sense or agreement that maybe school-based physical education related intervention is essential for improving young people's sports participation, which can contribute to future health benefits. And there are a lot of practice from different countries, such as Denmark. They have launched the 45 minutes of daily sports participation rule in their sports education school education system. The UK, United Kingdom also had the previous government also launched the Get Active strategies, which encourage teenagers to participate in sports, and also refine their sports curriculums to attract more participation. Similarly, in Asian countries such as Japan, they also expand their health and PE class hours. And for China, they also refined their sports law has made 1 hour of daily sports participation as a mandatory requirement. And sorry, just have to stop here because I'm sharing my screen. I can't actually see people raising hand. So if you have any questions, just open your mic and feel free to interrupt me at any time in case I can't see anything. Right. And back to the point. And even though we have a lot of existent policies that encourage minors to do sports, but physical inactivity is still a fourth leading cause of death worldwide, accounting for 6 to 10% of all non-communicable deaths. And also, school-aged children remain insufficient active, and increasing number of young people also failing to meet the required health standards. Here are some numbers. For instance, in the UK, the obesity rate among children aged 2 to 15 is quite high, 15%, and with 27% classified as overweight. And less than half of the children has met the UK Chief Medical Officer's guideline for physical activity. And similarly in China, obesity rate among children is 6 to 17 is also quite high, it's like 20% of that. And that brings the question, like, why there are existence a lot of interventions at school level to encourage sports participation. Is it effective? So it's quite essential to examine the effectiveness of sports policy targeting school to promote long-term health outcomes. And we all know it's not easy to examine this because the policy or initiatives at school level could be very diverse. Therefore, when we explore the literatures, a majority of this type of study focusing on the small-scale intervention evaluation around RCTs, and they found a mixed result. For instance, this studies found that the PPE license had no impact on children's health outcomes. And also, some people also found that this Reade research found that PE can improve fitness, performance, and body compositions of the elementary and middle school youth. But there are also like contradictory results. Oh, sorry, the Norris found no effect, and the following one found impact. Like PE can actually improve obesity prevention in elementary school children. So there are mixed results. Like Norris found no effect, and Reade and Telford found positive impact. And we have more literature as mentioned in our working paper available online. And so I haven't put all of the study here, just to briefly tell the story, the overall story of the study. And we all know that RCT is a very powerful tool to evaluate the interventions. However, it has a shortcoming, which is lack of generosity. We really don't know. On top of those population, they're looking at what is the potential effect at the population level. So there are also nationally representative studies looking into a broader population. Such as cowardly look at increased PE time and its impact on BMI and obesity, which found that PE is effective regarding reducing BMI. Even though they were using national data, I should correct them, maybe it's not representative because they have used the national data at US, but they only looked into the 5th graders. And Packham also looked into this impact and found similar results. But again, they looked into the US schools, middle school only. However, on the contrary to the previous story, they also found that PE has no impact on BMI overweight likelihood, focusing on the US high school students. And as I mentioned, there are more studies. If you're interested, you can refer to the working paper available online. But overall, based on the RCTs and nationally representative data, the results are quite mixed, and we don't know what is the whether the school education interventions, sports interventions are effective or not. There are some literature gaps. For instance, they looked into the specific grade levels rather than a larger adolescent population. And they also looked at a relatively shorter time spans rather than the longitudinal observational studies that covers longer period. And they also looked into focus on the young population at the Western context, and there's a select study on the rest of the world, such as China. Therefore, the current study seeks to address these gaps by focusing on people in a non-Western context of China, which we know that China accounts for 20% of the world population, and also a longitudinal context that covers a 10 years study. And we were trying to draw causal inference of the existing data and the policy, which I will introduce later, because using Chinese data is because the policy itself allow us to explore the causality. As a centralized policy, you could assume like it's like implement an RCT at the country level somehow that help us to draw the causal inference of the effect. I assume that majority of the audience today might not familiar with the Chinese education system. In order to make our methodology clearer, so I would like to spend some time to introduce the background part, which I start from the senior high school entrance exam abbreviated as C. So actually it assesses whether a student have met the junior high graduate standard, and it is a selective exam for the high school entry, and based on a 9 years compulsory education. So basically primary and junior high is compulsory 9-year education. And then the C examination is a selective one to pick those people who will carry on with their senior high, and which is very important for the Chinese population, Chinese minors and families, because prosperous or high quality senior high school is always related to prosperous future. And so that's a part that people really work on it hard to get a good result. And this C has been there for a long time, started in 1950s and cover academic subjects such as Chinese, mathematics, and foreign languages. It on the one hand is good for the selective talents. On the other hand, those academic focused feature hindered people from being active somehow. So the government also aware of the problem or the potential issue. So they also know the importance of physical health. So China has included a thing called mandatory sports performance assessment in the C system. So we call it SPA-C at this stage. And SPA-C has been there for quite a long time as well. It started from 1992 as a 9 pilot provinces, and till 2000, it will covered all the 31 mainland provinces, like over this period of time. And they have put this SPA-C into the C system because that's part of the final score for the enter for the senior high school. On top of Chinese, math, foreign language, you also have PE. But the percentage is not that high. It range from 4% to 10%, given which province you're taking the exam. But as I mentioned, given the competitive feature of the C exam itself, even 4% is a huge score that people would like to achieve a high score in order to get into a better senior high school. And this mandatory, or we call it summative exam, or we call it SPA-C, is administered at the end of the final year of junior high school. So usually it's held in a fixed time of the year. It's one-time summative exam. And we'll know the specific time feature might pose a lot of limitations. For instance, what if student doesn't feel good that day or that period? What if the weather is not good? What if they were under stress due to some other reasons? And what if the presence of other students could impact their performance? And they don't want their life to just be decided on one-time exam. So there is we'll call it the upgraded scheme coming afterwards, because the government also noticed the shortcoming of the potential summative like the nature of the exam. And there's another thing come out later on in 1999, which on top of looking at summative assessment, they're also looking into the continuous assessment. We'll call it SPA-C C, continuous, and SPA-C S is summative. So a province can choose they implement SPA-C S alone, or they combine the SPA-C C on top of SPA-C S. So because SPA-C S, the summative exam is assessment is always there, but the province can choose whether they want to put SPA C or not. That actually formed a treatment and control group that we'll mention later on. And I was mentioned that Chinese context actually provides a unique opportunity to address the causal impact of different school sports intervention. So for this story particularly, it will allow us to see whether a one-time exam or a continuous assessment, which works better for the students' long-term health. And they will also incorporate the school sports performance assessment into this C exam, also making the sports performance a parental factor for students' academic trajectory. This is important because even though there might be many guidelines from many countries that are saying we need to take exercise 1 hour a day, but people don't follow the rules due to many reasons. But this is outcome-oriented. People has to follow it. People have to follow it somehow because it's so important for their future growth. So we will also able to see the actually genuine impact of the policy itself because people follow the treatment. And as mentioned, different with the summative and mandatory assessment SPA CS, which take exam at the end of the junior high school. This continues or optional assessment, we call it SPA CC, which examine the participation at long period and look at an ongoing process, which is different with the SPA CS. And for those places who've decided to take SPA CC, so for provinces decided to implement this, they can also choose how they would like to evaluate this SPA C continuous, how they would like to assess the continuous performance of the student. They have two ways. The first one is to choose a subjective measurement of their continuous performance, which is called National Student Physical Health Standard, NS. So this assessment is universal across the country. And the second one is they can use subjective teacher-based assessment, like the teacher, their PE teacher, mark how well they have performed, rather than based on a standard optional NS system. So that's also optional. The place has taken the SPA CC, they can choose which one they want to use. And I hope I'm not confusing you at this stage. I know it's quite new system for many of the audience today. So this is a system of the Chinese education system that might make the things clearer. As you see, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse moving. So we start from primary education and then move to junior high, senior high, and undergraduate. I'm not putting masters and afterwards. And I've mentioned usually from grade 1 to 6, these for those who are at primary school education, and then they move to junior high. And at the end of the junior high, they have the C examination, and the SPA C is happening at the same time. And this summative SPA C is also taken at the end of the junior high. And for the continuous one, they can take during this junior high school education. And because SPA CS, this summative, right? Yeah, Kenneth? Yeah. I can see the reason behind, right?
So sorry if I missed this, but is there, so who's deciding whether it's the continuous or the summative?
Local authority.
Okay, and this is adopted at the same, so there's no switch from, I mean, so everything was summative, right? And then at one point in time in the later, and then at the end of, or like around 1999 or early 2000s, you could then switch. A local authority could then decide whether they want to do a summative or a continuous.
You're almost there. So summative is always there, like you say. It started from 1992, and in 2000, everywhere is summative, and it's continued to be there. And what the province can select is they want to have the continuous on top of summative or not. So summative is always there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and why would a municipality choose a continuous over summative?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry.
What would go into a municipality choosing continuous along with the summative?
It's based on their judgment of what could be good for the students' performance.
Okay.
Like, yeah. So it's more like a policy level. That's why the data itself look at individual level. And that's why we can't kind of assume that a policy is exogenous, because it's an upper level decision that is not based on the selection of individual behavior. But we will also discuss the endogeneity of the treatment later, to be more precise. Does it answer your question? Yeah.
Yes, that makes a lot more sense now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. So back to the point, this spicy S atom. So it looks into the physical forms, height, weight, and BMI, which you'll be surprised why it's included into the performance, right? But they account for 10% of the overall score of FASI-CS, like summative. And they also look into the sports skills, strength, quality, speed, quality, flexibility, endurance, ball games, attendance, ball games, swimming, ice or snow events, gymnastics, and future projects. I have to say it took us like many months to get this SPARC policy database, which is able to allow us to explore many interesting topics, because there's no existence and there is variance of the policy features in the different local authority. So for this piece of work, we are more like limited to general implementation of the policy itself, rather than looking into the specific type of assessment. Right, so this is how the composition of SPARC S there, and as I said, after 2000, year 2000, this FASI-CS is always there for all the places. And for those who pick continuous scores, who decide, the local authority decide to use SPARC continuous on top of the SPARC-S, and the intensity is also different. For instance, here I've listed 13 places which use this policy on top of like 31 mainland provinces. There are 13 who has implemented this SPARC-CS system, and their overall percentage of SPARC is also different. For instance, Beijing, their overall SPARC score is 40, and they just put 10 score of the continuous assessment. So basically, they indicate that continuous assessment is not as important as summative assessment. And for Tianjin, for instance, the continuous assessment take account of 60%, and there are also variations. This is just an illustration using the year 2020, and there will be a change variation of the time, as I mentioned before, because we are trying to build a panel data. And here's a question relevant to the previous question, which is, how does the SPAR continuous policy implemented? It started in 1999, but our study period, which I will mention later, is from 2010 to 2020. So here we listed during our study period, 2010-2020, does each place implement this FASI-C or not? So see, Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, and these are always covered by the FASI-C policy. And Yunnan, Guizhou, Jilin, they're implemented in different years, 2017, 2013. And for Hunan, for instance, Guan, Gansu, they first adopted, then they quit. So in the bracket, so they join, and then they choose to have it, and they give up. They choose to, similar to Gansu and Qinghai. And there are also a couple of provinces that have never implemented this policy throughout our study period. And I have put a note here, because the data we're going to use, which I'll introduce later, is only available, how to say, it can only identify the individual, which province those individuals come from, rather than which city they come from. And therefore, we have used the capital city of each province as a to describe the policy, which also makes sense because usually the cities around in the same province will follow the capital city's policy and we also did a sensitive analysis, robustness analysis based on this later on. I don't want to put too much time on the policy introduction, but just a final point that makes things crystal clear for the audience today. So we'll take example of Beijing city for instance as a case study. So in the year 2010-2011, so the overall SPAR-C sports score is 40, and 10 of the 40 are continuous assessment. What does this include? It included regular physical activity participation in 2 grades, 8 and 5, and also include the physical education classes in grade 8 and 9. And later on in the next round, they have done the upgrade of the system. What's the difference? The overall score is there, but they have extended their assessment from grade 8 to 9 to grade 7. So they have looked into longer period of the assessment. And later on, they have put the objective measurement, NS, if you remember, to measure it, and slowly try to get rid of the subjective, teacher evaluation. And then later on, they have increased their overall SPAR-C score, and the proportion of the SPAR-C is also increasing. They have also get rid of completely of the objective measurement of the continuous performance. They've used the objective one. And they also extend their evaluation period from junior high to primary school. Also include the score of health knowledge. So you can see how Beijing City has adapted themselves over the time. They continuously put more effort in sports, overall the sports performance into the C evaluation, and they will also emphasize continuous evaluation. And they will also extend their continuous evaluation period and also looked into objective measurement, assessment, rather than the subjective one. So that's the one case study. I hope you will be clear about how the SPAR-C system is working in China. Now is the time to go into our methodology part and theoretical part. The theoretical framework we are trying to follow is a Grossman model that has the health production function. I think you might be familiar with it if you are also doing health economics related work. And based on Grossman health capital stock in period I, which could depreciate with time, and also it depend on the previous health level, and also the market good input related to health, which is donated by MI, such as expenditure on sport equipment and nutritional food. And TH is a time input allocated in health production. And also EI is individual stock of health-related human capital. Now, how can this 5C, yeah, so it's quite tricky to continuous assessment. How can it actually improve individuals' health based on Grossman model? Because this SPAR-C actually created a very strong incentives for households and students to devote more time in sports participation and relative more goods input, for instance, joining sports clubs and buying rackets, etc. Because it's related to the education enrollment, right? Senior high enrollment. And 5CC also improves schools' physical education system, which could enhance students' health promotion human capital, because school also care a lot about their enrollment rate to good high school, senior high school. So theoretically, based on the Grossman model, the SPAR-CC could improve the health outcome, but we still need to look into the causal empirical evidence based on this, which we haven't done so far, and we will do it later on. So basically, that's one of the future work that we'll plan to do afterwards. And the data we're going to use is called China Family Panel Study. So it's conducted between 2010 to 2020. So it conducted every other year. So it measures health change for every other year, basically. And is implemented by the Institute of Social Science Survey at Peking University. This is open to public data that you can download it online. And also has a Chinese and English questionnaire in case you're interested to use it in your future study. And we have conducted research using this survey for multiple intervention assessment. And this is nationally representative, and it's a large-scale longitudinal social survey project that includes individual feature, household feature, intergeneration feature, and some measurement of living environment, health, and labor, many impact. And current data we have used comprise 29K 865 individuals in the current study, and we limited our study sample to children aged between 6 to 15 years old. And we have also included some province level economic data that was obtained from the China Statistical Yearbook and linked to the CIPS using the province and year indicators. And here are the variables that we have included into the study. I haven't put a specific definition here, but I put a summary statistics for you to have a clearer understanding of the variables. So our outcome variable is called sick frequency, which is measured by the number of sick time in the past week, which ranging from 0 to 15. Last month, not last week, sick frequency. Well, we cannot get sick 15 times in the past week, can you? So it's just last month. And as you can see from the treated and non-treated group, we can see that a treated group, the sick frequency is slightly lower than the non-treated group, but still, does the FASI work or not? FASI, sorry, I keep saying FASI because it was the abbreviation I used it before. So FASI, whether it works or not, you need to do it empirically. We do see some equal distribution about age and gender and ethnicity in treated and control group, and there are also some variations in different groups as well. And we have included age, gender, ethnicity, and hukou, which is a registration type in a Chinese system, and education level and urban or rural, private health insurance, social health insurance, BMI, education expenditure, parents' education level in the study. And we also put the GDP per capita and government education expenditure into the study. We do aware that there could be bad controls in the control variable list because there could be endogenous and be decided by the treatment variables. Therefore, we have conducted our study with and without the control variables into the study. And we also plan to do a couple of robustness check by getting rid of some like endogeneity control variables such as private health insurance in the case. But our current results does hold regardless of the inclusion of control variables to try to deal with the bad control issue. Another topic is that the current data is used as EM imputation to deal with the potential missing value issue of the control variables, and outcome variable are not included into the imputation to avoid the contaminant of like fake correlation of the treatment and outcome variable. Again, when we are doing models without control variables, so that means the imputation of missing variables itself do not affect the results. So our current results are also robust to dealing with the missing variable or not does not affect the robustness of our result. And this is the modeling strategy because the FASI-C SPA-CC policy was introduced at different time, and there are joiners and also leavers. So joiners are the province transitioning from untreated, that means they just have the summative, to treated, that means they have the summative and continuous. And there are also levers. If you remember those years in the bracket, that means province moving from having both summative and continuous to just summative, yes, untreated. And this require us, the standards DID will not hold in this condition. So we need to adopt the recent Schwarzman and Dole approach that maybe many of you have familiar with this approach already, which will be extended in the dynamic effect later on also, that could help us to control for the heterogeneity of the treatment and implementation year, specifically fit for our design. And I would call it CD approach, also applied to not only dummy treatment variable, but also continuous treatment variable, which also fit our study design, because in the extended study, we also had replaced our treatment with the continuous one, which I will talk about it later. So equation 1 shows the specification we use in our study. And since then, the SPA-CS implementation nationwide throughout the study period, which is 2010 to 2020. So individuals and the SPA-CS alone will serve as a control group. And here's the result. As you can see, it shows without control variables and with control variables regression. So it's a dynamic impact of SPA-CC on the sickness frequency. And the blue line itself indicates the point estimate and the 95% of confidence intervals. And we've used the period -1 as reference group. And we'll see that actually there is an instant impact, which is significant at a 90% confidence interval at the time of wave 0, because our line is 95, so you cannot see it that clearer. But actually, you'll see after 2 waves, which is 4 years, the significant improvement in health is much more obvious comparing to an instant impact, and this result is consistent regardless of the inclusion of the control variables. And we reached a relatively clear answer that when we are using continuous assessment, that is has more effective, more beneficial effect comparing to those just use a summative assessment. And we've further looked into the heterogeneity impact. We divided our sample into male and female group, and we found that female marginally significant than male. And the parallel trend assumption both hold. I forgot to mention the previous page, the parallel trend assumption also holds for our baseline analysis. And for when we do subgroup analysis for urban and rural, we see also rural group also benefit more from the policy, which is quite positive because there would be health disparity among the urban and rural group, and the policy actually have bigger beneficial for the rural population, which also supports the decrease of the health inequality among different populations. And for the male and female, they also indicate that the tailored, because if you recall, what are assessed in the SPA-C is actually matters and could vary across different places as well. So different gender will also respond it differently. So that would be important to have the tailored intervention based on the subgroup analysis that we have got that kind of conclusion. And now we have known that SPA-CC works, for whom it works better. And we are still curious about when the place has adopted SPA-CC, should it take the objective assessment measure, which is called NS, or the subjective one, which is based on the school teacher? In order to answer this question, we have restricted our sample to the minors in the reason that just implementing the SPA-CC. And then we have our treatment group consists of minors who experienced the inclusion of NS. And for the control variable, there are people who do not have this NS in their system, evaluation system. And we do found that, again, we use a CD approach, the same baseline model. We found that the SPA-CC with objective measurement, NS, is more effective in reducing the frequency of sickness among minors. And parallel trend assumption also satisfied. Here, I haven't put the figure there, but I put the results. And the answers, one place want to take SPA-CC, objective one is better. And I mentioned previously, because CFPS dataset cannot identify individuals in different cities, because for the anonymous perspective, it can only identify the individual at province level, not city level. And we have used the province city capital as a proxy of the province level policy. Therefore, in order to be more precise, to be able to measure our treatment population, we have constructed a continuous treatment variable, which is based on the province capital share of the province residential population. That is the province capital residence population divided by the overall province population. So they can reflect the proportion of the provincial population directly affected by the policy. And we have built a continuous treatment group and used the CD approach, the ID approach. And in order to use the continuous treatment variable into the study, we need to have a threshold values here. And here we have choose two threshold variable, which is first is 0.021 and second is 0.023. Why those are selected? Because those are based on the yearly change of the policy value, so that we have picked those values. And we found that the results are consistent. And we again see after 2 waves, and which means after 4 years, the effect is more apparent in the long run. And here comes to the discussion and conclusion. We do see that school sport intervention improves health outcomes, and the types of intervention is essential. Specifically, the SPA-CC significantly reduced 0.09 times of the frequency of illness among minors, which account for about 12% of the standard deviation. And in the long run, the effect size also exceeding 20% after 4 years of intervention. So continuous sport performance assessment is very important. And also, reduction in illness frequency is more pronounced for rural and female population than the urban and male population. And formal intervention, formal assessment in school is more important than subjective teacher evaluation. So overall, it highlights the importance of the tailored intervention to maximize the impact by addressing what works. That means the types, summative or continuous, and for whom, which in our study we found for female and rural, and which context. That means assessing atoms, objective 1, we are able to answer like what works for whom and which context it works. So that's about, we hope that the finding can have a broad implication of future school sports policy development, and we'll see if it can have the potential to extending to the Western world. And we all understand that the system or structure in China and Western are very, very different. But as mentioned that by doing the careful study design and econometrics and also national-wide RCT, those policy features could help us to identify the causal impact regardless of the country or place structure and features. At least the simple question we could deliver to the Western world would be continuous assessment methods, objective assessment methods. And there is inequality. There is for heterogeneity for different population. But we are not trying to overclaim here. So we still need, like there are Western world data available, and it will be worth exploring, even the small scale RCT or a generalized national representative data would be worth to do the comparison. And we do So that's the majority of the current work, and we do identify some limitations and plan to work on it later. So, for instance, our treatment policy currently has two. One is a dummy variable indicating a place has implemented the SPA-CC or not, and continuous treatment variable by taking into consideration of the population. And another one would be the intensity of the SPA-CC. As I mentioned, different places has different scores. Like some places take continuous assessment more seriously and some are not. So there will be another continuous treatment variable and the evaluation that I've put it here, like intensity, the task composition, the proportion of SPA-CC in the overall score. And there could be some discussion about the exogenous of the treatment effect, because you may say people with different individual student features might take the SPA-CC, so that we will also run additional regression to see if the local features actually affect the policy implementation to justify the exogenous of the effect. The survey data itself has many limitations. That would be the health outcome are mostly subjective, not objective, but it also be widely used and justified, could be a useful measurement for health outcomes. But on top of that, we'll also look to use the objective measure of health, which is BMI or obese, in the future study to explore more outcome variables. And as I mentioned in the previous discussion, we also deal with potentially endogeneity variables by either remove it and do random regression or take the lag value of that to avoid reverse causality. And another big work would be to look into the mechanisms. Based on the Grossman model, there are three main mechanisms that we would like to explore, like does SPA-CC actually improve PA participation? Does it actually improve commodity input of sports for sports or nutrition for household or minors? Does it actually improve the school PE system? So we are exploring that set to get the measurement of those variables and to see if our mechanisms hold and to test which mechanisms plays the most significant role in improving health outcomes. A more subgroup analysis can be done. For instance, different age group students, for those who are quite close to the graduation, maybe they are more stressed about different occasions. They are more sensitive to the SPA-CC. So we've divided our sample into the primary school student age and the junior high, and to see if the closest graduation can affect, and we can just have different age groups to see different potential results. That's all about my talk today, and thank you so much for your time, and it'd be great if you have any suggestions about improving the work, or if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you. Yeah, James, that's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Jing. That was really interesting, really fascinating.
Thank you.
Presentation of a really interesting project. My computer failed me while we were in the middle of that talk, so I missed some of it. Obviously,
Yeah, it's complicated.
I might come back. But nonetheless, you carried on, and that's great. Mainly that I missed some of the important parts, but I'm really glad to see that there are lots of questions already. Johan's got his hand up first.
Right.
Hi, Jing.
Hi, Johan.
Just a quick one. So I might have missed it. So to clarify, are you using the lag-dependent variable within as an explanatory variable in there? Because I saw something in terms of like the early kind of theoretical model, and then I don't know if I just missed it.
You mean the new dependent variable?
Yeah, so using a dependent variable, are you using that as a explanatory variable as well? So using a lag-dependent variable in the model?
Lag-dependent variable is more for the covariance. It is not embedded into the treatment and outcome variable at this stage, right?
So you're not using a lag-dependent variable. You just said that that's going to be a future work, right?
Right.
I'd advise not to do that. Just keep it as, because you've got short panel. You've got t equals 10. So 10 periods, right? then obviously you're going to have quite substantial nickel bias if you do that. So I just run it as it is. And the other thing in terms of like one of the core variants I noticed, you had that balance on your tables where you had the treated and the non-treated group. So GDP per capita was quite substantial in one of the groups. I think it was the treated one compared to the non-treated. Like my only thing here is there a back door there in terms of if a province is say richer, do they then do other kind of sports and health activities? Do they eat healthier and do all these other kind of things in terms of other aspects that might just be impacting that through the back door? And is there a way to maybe kind of like condition that off? So that's it basically for me. But good job.
Thanks. That's very good suggestion. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because there are many local features that could affect adoption of the treatment variables. That we will also explore if it's related to the local features, as you've suggested. Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Johan.
Thank you.
Kenneth.
Yeah, I guess I would second Johan. I mean, this is kind of what I was getting at with the previous question, about kind of selection into such a program.
Yeah.
So you say improve. So I was kind of looking at the broader study and what can we learn from it. I mean, you say improves health outcomes. Where is this based off of? Like health outcomes more broadly?
Broadly indicate that is based on a national population rather than looking at a specific age group. Or it's not like broader health measurement, because we just have limited measurement of health outcomes, which we've used as sick frequency. Given that sick frequency also doesn't indicate which specific disease people have, we still think it's relatively broader than a specific type of disease. I'm not sure if it answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned by health outcomes, because because my understanding, and this is why I asked before I say, because I think you're just looking at reduction in school illnesses, right? That's where this claim is coming illnesses from?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just reduction in, so it's how this new measurement that then increases the importance of physical activity, reduces illness at school, days missed due to illness.
Yeah, that's one of the mechanisms, and not only illness at school, it's like overall illness reduction. It's like yeah, and improving physical activity is one of the pathway, and could also impact through putting more like investment in goods or nutrition, and also schools, like physical education. So there are 3 potential mechanisms that we are trying to look at, but currently we haven't done any of those. We are working on it. Yeah.
Okay. And then the main figure, or I guess figure 1, sorry, if I'm also...
Do you want me to share my screen? Am I still sharing my screen?
No,
okay.
Not any longer.
Go on. Yeah. Share. Might be able to see it, right? Go on. Oh my gosh. Figure 1.
Yes.
Figure 2.
Or figure 2, sorry, figure 2.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so this is the sickness frequency.
Yeah.
Okay. And this was significant?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at it on a smaller screen, so I think, but I mean, if I look at this, I'm a bit, I think it's a bit inconclusive. Like, of course, I see kind of a bit of a downward trend, but I mean, also the -3, this is also 10 slightly negative. actually even more so, and the confidence interval is even tighter than the positive third year plus third year. So yeah, I'm if looking at this figure, I'm actually a bit uncertain as to the effect.
Yeah. I should have put another table there because this CD approach is actually shows an aggregated impact, giving the weighted long-term and like instant impact together, give a average treatment that was significant. That value is significant, presented in a working table, a working paper. I should have put the table over there. Yeah, but here you might see in period 0. That was not significant from based on the current one, is because the blue line here is a 95% confidence interval, so it's marginally significant at 90%. And in the long run, the significance also improved. But overall, when we use the approach to generate the aggregated impact, that is significant.
Okay. Yeah, then maybe I'll have to look into the picture, because then, yeah, to then draw some sort of larger like causal conclusion from the figure, if this is the main analysis. Yeah, then I was a bit unsure, but so then it's probably better that I look at the paper.
Right.
And this is also DID, right? This has. Have you looked at it using other estimators, Callaway Santa Ana, Krill Borsek?
That's a good point. Yeah, I can do. Yeah, I can do other staggered DID as well.
I think is it Aguirre, this health paper? It's another paper on health, mental health, I think. And I've seen it a lot with some of these other DID health papers, that essentially they have 3 to 4 estimators all side by side to kind of show that these general trends are robust, irrespective of estimator, because I know there are some people critical of some of these ones.
Sure.
I buy it, but it could be helpful. Maybe you get this as a comment, actually, why use this one. And so if I think you can show that the general trend holds even qualitatively, then it might be more convincing.
Absolutely. Great idea. Yeah, I'll definitely put that in. Yeah.
I think you're on.
I'm on mute. Yeah. I said I'm in a room where people are coming in and out. Someone came in, so I thought I should mute in case you heard noises. Any more questions? Thanks, Kenna.
None from my side.
I'll ask you one that reflects possibly, one, my ignorance, and two, the fact I missed a chunk of the meeting. But on your abstract, you motivate the piece by the rise in childhood obesity. And I wondered if you were able to kind of return to that at all with, is there data that exists at this kind of regional level, given you've got the regional variation in when the treatment was applied? Are you able to say anything about any kind of impact on obesity of these measures?
Absolutely, that's the things we're going to do next, like create an obesity variable based on the BMI. That's good, very good point. Yeah, thanks. We'll put that in. Yeah.
Great. Reflects more on me than you then. That's great. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jing. That was really, really interesting. I wish you and your co-authors all the best as you proceed forward with the paper.
Thank you.
We don't meet next week because some of us will be fortunate enough to be in Gijón for the Sports Economics Conference there. And then we'll return the following week when either me or a co-author of mine will present research football matches and policing evidence. Actually, not from London, but from no, it is from London, sorry, but it's different evidence from London. Anyway, that's 2 weeks from now. So look forward to hopefully seeing some of you soon. And if not, I'll see you in 2 weeks back here. Thanks again, Jing.
Thank you. Yeah, take care. See you. Thanks.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, Jing.